Well, folks, 2 championships decided. Oh, all right. Well,
you know what I'm in.
Your Blitzkrieg Pro Meanest of Times main event. The grandest prize in Blitzkrieg Pro hangs in the balance, and the proverbial golden apple of Blitzkrieg Pro, it may extend from the branch that grew from the tree that is the root of all evil. Charles Mason. He set the stage for us in Westfield. He challenged Sammy Diaz. Sammy Diaz, he carries top 5 dead or alive on his back. As a result, can never turn down a challenge. Charles Mason. Is tonight his night to capitalize an opportunity? Or is the Bedlam reign of Sammy Diaz too much for Charles Mason?
I think what is a really tough pill to swallow here, Johnny, is that Charles Mason usually gets obsessed with his opponents. In this case, it is not the case. He is obsessed with the gold itself. I fear what he will do to get there. I have never seen such a focused Charles Mason in Blitzkrieg Pro.
Around the middle of last year, the transformation for Charles Mason that you speak of was complete. The bloodlust cost Charles Mason one bout too many. He's tempered it just enough. He wants a tapestry that's equal parts crimson and gold. He has a chance to complete his greatest creation here tonight at Blitzkrieg Pro. Your current House of Glory world champion, multi-time world champion around the world and back.
And we've seen what he's willing to do to get there. We've seen what he's done already in Blitzkrieg Pro to get there.
And he may be the greatest away team, so to speak, that Blitzkrieg Pro has ever seen. The faithful don't shake Charles Mason. Now here may be the greatest home team that Blitzkrieg Pro has ever seen. Because few feed off the faithful like Sammy Diaz.
I had a minute to speak with Sammy Diaz earlier today, asking him how he felt going into this contest. He said, I want it to be known. Everything I do is for the Blitzkrieg faithful. I am here to fight for the faithful. I represent the faithful. Very similar to Hobby earlier, right? Once it becomes a second part of them, a family to them, they feel like they're fighting for their family, for their home.
Sammy Diaz, soaking in the energy of our resident faithful here in Enfield, Connecticut. And I gotta believe in the back of his mind, he knows that the extra energy goes a long way. Charles Mason, championship, multi-time championship poise at the disposal of the root of all evil. Sammy Diaz, a belt collector in his own right. This is where championship poise collides. This is where we see how deep the ocean of professional wrestling excellence really runs. Whether you're watching at home, whether you're here in Enfield, whether you love or hate either one, you're in for a treat, and professional wrestling gets better next. Oh, you can see very unconcerned about the opinions of the faithful.
And in this corner, from Hartford, Connecticut, weighing in at 190 pounds, your reigning and defending Blitzkrieg Bedlam champion, top 5 dead or alive, Sammy Diaz.
Main event coming at you here. Blitzkrieg Pro Bedlam Championship hangs in the balance. Charles Mason stepping up to the defending champ, Sammy Diaz. Referee Bill Thompson, your referee for this contest.
Very big fight feel. Notice how Charles has not taken his eyes off the gold.
Multifaceted obsession for Charles Mason. It's not just blood, skin, sinew, bone. Gold, leather, now a part of the equation of what fuels Charles Mason. Sammy Diaz, Charles Mason, one thing you can say about both of them. They're going to need to channel every lesson and every minute of tape that they've studied on their opponent tonight. Charles Mason, fastball down the pipe to Joanna Robinson. And now Mason, Sammy Diaz. No shortage of feeling out between these two. But it's not just going to be clean wrestling on the side of Charles Mason anyways, and perhaps not for Sammy Diaz either. Sammy Diaz, I have to believe, much in the way we were talking about Perry Von Vicious having to dig into the darker parts of his soul to match wits with Asher. Same can be said for Sammy against Charles.
And we've seen the attitude shift, Exhibit A, with Sammy Diaz when he needs to evoke it.
Lest we forget, he capitalized with a contract cash-in to bring home that Bedlam championship. The attitude was very different when he captured the championship, but I gotta believe the faithful have converted Sammy Diaz over time. The love just kept pouring in for Sammy Diaz.
Certainly, but I think that neither of these combatants are strangers to doing whatever it takes.
Right. They're both gonna have to dig to deep places. For Sammy Diaz, it might get uncomfortable, or at least he might have to dust off the cobwebs.
Ref Bill already having his hands full.
That Charles Mason, Exhibit A. No wasted motion between when referee Bill Thompson got out of the way and when Charles Mason reinserted himself, now scoring the knife edge chop against the defending champ. And Mason on the receiving end now. But it sort of fuels it. Not just the dishing out the punishment, but being on the receiving end as well. Sammy Diaz so quick, up and over, out the back door, takes off. Mason, strike one, strike two. Sammy Diaz round the way with the flying head scissors.
Taking Mason over and sending him out.
That extra steam, that extra velocity. Diaz, Mason both spilling to the outside. Time's only getting meaner and Bedlam championship action. And Sammy Diaz, he knows all too well, he cannot take his eye off Charles Mason for longer than a second. Diaz now battering Mason around the outside here at Thompson Hall. Mason firing back. And beneath all the bloodlust, beneath the as you will evil, there's a very game pro wrestler, but he just ate that. Tope con hilo off the heels of the super kick from Sammy Diaz.
Top 5, showing all of us why he is the top 5, dead or alive. How quick, how agile.
And even when he had a bit more of a sour attitude, it was always that faithful appreciation of that athleticism that I gotta believe endeared Sammy to the faithful and vice versa. And now Sammy, receiving end, the mist of Mason, and double stomp! creased across the back of the head. He might have cracked the skull of Sammy Diaz. Yeah, scrap the OA off the nickname, Top 5 Dead. This is Charles Mason, and now raining down the rights. And if there's anybody who can deliver truth to that newfound moniker, it's the root of all evil. I don't know what his body count is at, nor where the bodies are buried. But Charles Mason, he wants to add one more to the pile. Both corpses and championships.
Mason, such a dangerous competitor, as he seemingly is always 2 to 3 steps ahead, able to pivot very quickly as well. But notice he had that mist ready for when he needed it.
He's a master of seemingly every facet of professional wrestling. You want to high fly or get on the mat, he can match your best with you. But then he's willing to dig deep into the darkness. Whether it be the mist, whether it be the array of chokeholds. Cover now. Charles Mason, potentially the deepest toolbox in the game. Some tools better left alone. Now Mason wrenching away at the face of Sammy Diaz, going after the eyes, maybe the nose. And now, worst chiropractor. Twist to the neck on Sammy Diaz. And he may be softening up Sammy Diaz, whether it be for that tombstone pile driver, whether it be for one of those chokes that Charles Mason is so well known for. But Diaz rallying back, trying for the Irish whip. Mason reverses, explodes into the back elbow. And Sammy Diaz, by instinct, rolling towards the ropes.
What? Speaking of,
and Mason using that very ploy, that instinct, potentially against Sammy Diaz. I think, not entirely certain if referee Bill, that might have been outside of his peripheral vision. Sammy Diaz, he's game. Rallying back with the big right, but Mason finds home. Big right careens off the skull. Mason, Sammy, center of the BP ring. Back and forth they go. And Sammy staying tough in the pocket. But Mason, he welcomes, as I said before, give and take. Going low. Well, referee Bill Thompson none the wiser.
terrible.
Some dirty boxing out of Charles Mason. You know, the prevalent low blows in professional wrestling, I often wonder why these athletes, they don't wear, athletic supporters. You thwart the low blow with one article of clothing.
Well, you hope that people would be just and fight fair.
Yeah,
and
that's
you wouldn't need it.
We should know better by now. Charles Mason hooking up the superplex. Sammy Diaz wants no part of it. Oh! Well, Mason's gonna have his pound of flesh, whether it's figurative or literal.
Oh, Sammy!
Digging into the darkness. Sammy Diaz, that may be what it takes. Steps into the super kick and now takes off. Well, Mason got that fish hook. He's got a big one. Lariat! Leg hooked. Mason!
Only 2, but Mason not deterred.
Where that fish hook into the lariat goes. That array of chokeholds. That cradle tombstone pile driver. Usually not far off. Sammy Diaz. Thunderous strike delivered from Charles Mason, and Sammy Diaz, that gait is getting more and more unsteady as time goes on. But he's valiant. Rallying back the rights, but Mason just doesn't stop coming. And now, high velocity on the Meteora. And now keep an eye on this one. Well scouted. Sammy Diaz. He knows all too well the high velocity Meteora is often followed with that launch into the Death Valley driver. And Sammy Diaz just what the doctor ordered. A top 5 destroyer, dare I say. The great equalizer in our meanest of times main event for the Bedlam Championship.
Sammy Diaz pulling himself to his feet in the corner.
And now the elbow up, Sammy Diaz. He wants nothing more than to go the distance, to go from luau to luau as the Bedlam champion. His greatest test to date, Charles Mason on the receiving end of the sling blade. And now Sammy Diaz. Corner to corner we go. Nobody home on the climbing kick. Second time around. Hooking Mason up. We're gonna take a trip. Cheeky Nando's. And now quick to follow up from the Cheeky Nando's kick into the Golden Star powerbomb. From Will Ospreay to Kota Ibushi. Primary influences of Sammy Diaz. Only good for two. But Sammy Diaz, that high altitude frog splash, that cradle shot, the Samoan fireman's carry into the driver. He's got options as well.
We know there's plenty more in the toolkit of Sammy Diaz, but you can say the same for Charles Mason.
Both of these two are round and third headed towards home. Only one can cross and score first. Nobody home. Sammy Diaz boot to the midsection. Oh, fights home with Black Sunday. Well done, Sammy.
Oh, no.
This time the homage to the Prince Devitt Finn Balor, the single underhook brain buster. Captured the IWGP Championship once upon a time for Devitt. Has won a victory or two for Sammy Diaz here, but it could be cradle shock time.
Sammy Diaz calling for the end.
Just like that. We're going to figure four of the legs before delivering the driver. Penny leg kick finds home. Now Sammy stepping up the middle, snatched out of the air into the waiting arms. The boa constrictor that is Charles Mason.
The way that Mason grasped Diaz straight out of the air.
And how many times have I seen it? They springboard off the middle ropes. Mason catches them in that choke. Many a victim has fallen to that very sequence. Charles Mason. The grip only tightening the more Sammy Diaz struggles.
Diaz still in this though. Trying to work his way out of this hold.
He's either got to free himself from the clutches of Charles Mason or he's got to get himself to the ropes.
He's not far off, but oh, he's got it, he's got it, he's got it.
And Charles Mason, you know, he's going to get every drop out of the cloth that is our referee's 5 count. 4.9. And never be earlier. Sammy Diaz now. Up kicks. Connecting. Able to extricate himself, create some space. Here comes Mason. Wait a minute! Variation on Sister Abigail, and now quick to follow up the pile driver. Magnificent 1-2 punch out of Charles Mason. Very nearly brought home Bedlam gold. The pro wrestling equivalent of a double barrel shotgun blast out of Charles Mason. Sammy Diaz not rising at all. And now Mason. Oh, and the right finds home. Right across the jaw, but Sammy.
Perhaps looking for that tombstone.
Yeah, Sammy sensing the danger. But now Sammy. Changing levels on the rights. And now stacking up rights to the head and punches. Mason. Sammy! Had the brainbuster scouted, finds home with a super kick, but Mason, reversal of the Irish whip coming in hot. Mason, receiving end of the power slam. Top 5 combo. Potentially watch the moonsault! Got
it! Oh!
And that's a phase shifter. That could be nearly all she wrote. If this frog splash, this mad splash connects. Oh, nobody home. Sammy Diaz rolling through. Massive drop kick out of Charles Mason. Wanted low Meteora. Sammy Diaz had it scouted. Coming in. Low Meteora of his own. Back of the head finds home. Diaz now looking to follow up center of the ring. Now what's he got here? Hooking up a half Nelson, looking for the full. Mason scouted. Well done, intelligently defending, takes off. But Sammy steps into the super kick.
Caught him taking off and boom! Mason matching.
And now Mason takes off. Sammy, the bicycle knee, finds home. Their best, their brightest rounds. With a 180 out of the leapfrog. Charles Mason. Dragon suplex. Sammy Diaz powering through the pain. Lariat. Charles Mason now. Oh, but Sammy, reversal, vertical drop, brain buster. Picture perfect brain buster. And both Mason and Sammy Diaz giving it their all for the grandest prize in Blitzkrieg Pro, the Bedlam Championship. Sammy Diaz, he wants to go the distance that few ever have. Luau to luau as Bedlam champion. Charles Mason wants to add to that already prolific resume of world and heavyweight championships. The ambition between champion and challenger alike is infinite. The aspirations know no bounds, but the body has to give some time.
And as you can see, they've both taken so much out of each other, standing up maybe on sheer instinct at this point.
And neither one are able to stay tight on their feet. Well, wait a minute now. The resolution and the velocity of the strikes picking up all the while. The gates on both were unsteady, but now, hold on, ripcord. Mason, doing top 5 cutter, stepping off the middle. Oh, but Mason, he's weathered his share of variations on the ace crusher. Sammy Diaz, he's eyeing those ropes. I gotta believe that high altitude frog splash, that cradle shot, it's one of those 2 gambits that await in the playbook.
Mason barely able to kick out that time though. If Diaz can capitalize and stay on him right now, he might be able to put him away.
Forecasting for the end. We know that both of these two, we cannot count it out until that second bell rings. Mason now out the back door, coming in hot. Oh, just blasted Bill Thompson. Blasted Bill with that drop kick. Sandwiched into the turnbuckle. Bill may be a non-factor. And now Mason ripcord into the lariat. The fish hook.
Mason realizing what he's done.
And now,
and smiling.
Charles Mason, he's examining his options. And he's decided on what object is the apple of his eye. Blast Sammy Diaz with the Bedlam Championship itself. Reviving Bill Thompson. Charles Mason. What? Wait a minute. Sammy Diaz. I don't know if that was an unconscious convulsion.
I have no idea.
Oh, but now Mason. Tombstone position hooked up.
No, wait.
Sammy! Prawn hold! Sammy! Nearly had it. Nearly retained. And now, once again, shoulders down. Deep stack of Mason.
Couldn't be closer 2 times in a row.
Now fighting for that rear naked choke. Diaz intelligently defending, drags his way out of harm. Cradle shot. Charles Mason hooked up with that left hand. That left hand to Mason. Across the ropes. Oh, Sammy Diaz got it. Sammy Diaz. Cradle shot delivered. Deep hook of the cover. Sammy Diaz. Charles Mason. That's 6-7 cents of Charles Mason. That's how you get a deep resume. You know where you are in the ring, even as the bout runs as deep as this one. I don't know where that presence of mind, I don't know how he still has any presence of mind. But Sammy Diaz, undeterred, eyeing those ropes. And Sky, I think we know what song he's gonna play next.
And if he can land this, Johnny,
Hold
Mason's
on.
most recent.
Get a look
Hold on,
outside
hold
the
on.
ring.
Wait,
Get a look outside the ring.
Wait, hey!
Andy Brown, Charles Mason's other half here in Blitzkrieg. But Andy Brown, Bill Thompson not standing for it. The immediate ejection. Sammy Diaz, he's got a bone to pick with Andy Brown stepping into the super kick. And now Tope Suicida. And I don't know about this.
But wait, what does Mason have in his hand? Are those scissors?
Well, Charles Mason, he loves himself a sharp object. But Diaz out of the way. Pele kick. Mason on down now. Uh-oh. Sammy Diaz now with the sharp objects. Mason shoulder first. Sammy Diaz, he may be getting some temptations.
He's considering it for sure. I don't even blame him, but he knows he doesn't need to do this.
That's a very old top 5 dead or alive that may be coming back to the surface. Digging into the darker recesses of his soul. But wait a minute, Sammy Diaz headed to the outside now.
What's he thinking?
Sammy Diaz. He's got he's going after something underneath the ring. I don't know if he brought an object anticipating that Charles Mason would be introducing such plunder. Oh, hold on a second. Sammy Diaz undoing ropes. What in the world does Sammy Diaz have in mind?
I think he's digging deep. He's looking that darkness in the face. I don't know what he has in mind, but I think he's considering his options too.
Well, I don't know if there's a larger than average object under there, a full-size table, a cabin of light tubes. I don't know. But he looks to be dismantling the Blitzkrieg Pro ring. And all the while, I think the darkness may have taken over for Sammy Diaz because this is recovery time for Charles Mason all the while. Sammy now, the Blitzkrieg Pro canvas has been undone, those mats exposed.
I think Sammy Diaz is losing it, Johnny. I think he should go back in and not waste this time.
Does he think the show has ended? Has he completely snapped?
I don't know. I know that the Bedlam Championship can bring things out of you that you didn't expect, and
I mean, we've said that about Charles Mason himself how many times here. He can drag his opponent to the depths of their own sanity alongside him, into his territory, if you will. Now we're seeing now exposed wood. Sammy Diaz. Now what does he have in mind? Cradle shock on that exposed wood.
frog splash on the exposed wood. There's options here too.
That could be disastrous.
Devastating. This is not work.
Imagine if Charles Mason rolls out of the way of that frog splash. It'd be the most disastrous frog splash in the history of frogs or splashes.
Sammy Diaz, I mean, this is a high risk, but this is what comes with wanting to defend, wanting to keep what's yours.
Now the knee finds home. Sammy Diaz locked in on Charles Mason. And the knee strike once again. This reminds me of when Kota Ibushi would sort of get taken over by another world.
Ain't gonna leave no witness. Cut your word off. I can't see Christmas. Your girl hit me up, said she wanna put me over. I'm a businessman, told her come on over. Let's go. I'm handcuffed. I'm a returner.
Charles Mason knows he needs to get out of there.
He wanted that cradle shock real bad. That launched into the corner. And now eyes on this. Wow, the Death Valley driver. Hold on. And Now,
No.
magnificent adjustment into that tombstone pile driver.
No,
And Sammy
don't.
Diaz! Sammy Diaz! Flattened by the cradle tombstone pile driver. And Sammy Diaz only has himself to blame. Sammy Diaz gave in to one of the deadliest of the 7 deadly sins. He became wrath, and Charles Mason capitalized. And this is what Charles Mason does. This is how Charles Mason has built such a resume, such a Fort Knox of gold at his disposal. He drags his opponents into their own personal hell. And he brings home the richest prize wherever he may roam.
This is I don't have words, Johnny. This is a terrible image. This is what happened tonight. Azure is our Jensen champion. Mason is our Bedlam champion.
The meanest of times.
The most evil of times. This is disastrous. In the course of one evening, our locker room essentially was turned upside down.
3 new champions crowned. Salute to the Ancestral City Shooters. Salute to Azure, your new Jensen champion. And salute, love it or hate it, to Charles Mason, your new Blitzkrieg Pro Bedlam champion. Folks, the times only get meaner here in Blitzkrieg Pro. We're back in Westfield on May 2nd, and then we're full steam ahead to the Luau in June. Until next time, for Hot Scoop Skyler, I'm Johnny Torres. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, good fight, good night.